Hi, and welcome back to In the Hot Seat with Emily deAyala and Dr. Viviana Coles. I am Emily, and this is Dr. Coles.
Hi there.
And in this series, we are discussing infidelity. If you missed it, go back to the last episode. We hit some of the reasons why people may engage in an affair and what some of the risk factors are. Today, we are going to discuss what happens in the immediate aftermath when, a partner...
When it's discovered.
Yes, exactly.
Or if somebody decides to disclose, which happens less often. Most of the time, especially with technology, people are trusting what they say is a gut feeling and following up on it, and then they find out that their fears are true.
Yeah, don't forget that the iPhone often syncs to the iPad and the
everything
is synced.
The
so
truth comes out typically one way or another.
Yeah.
Just less often it comes from the horse's mouth.
And I do think that an accidental discovery, like accidentally finding information on your partner's iPad, is far more devastating than, a sit-down conversation.
The slap in the face, the punch to the gut is really, really difficult. So one of the things that we tend to hear in our practices about clients who have discovered is that a lot of women especially will turn into themselves and figure out how did I cause this?
Exactly. I think when anything happens that we don't understand in our relationship, we immediately look back on ourselves, because if there's this, idea that if it was my fault, then there's something I could do to fix it. And, more often than not, it's not the case. Again, we discussed in the last episode, sometimes it's just about the opportunity presented itself. A lot of affairs don't happen because of unhappy marriages. So, try not to ask yourself that question right off the bat.
Right. There might be an aspect of the relationship that could always be worked on, but that's present in all relationships anyway. It's not typically the catalyst to going outside the marriage. That might be the catalyst for seeking therapy, or it might be the catalyst for going ahead with a divorce, but it's not always linked directly with infidelity.
Right.
One of the other things that I think clients talk about when they first find out what's going on is they panic. They really panic. The whole world feels like it's falling down on them. They question the entire relationship, the validity of the entire relationship. And that is where I think a lot of people really start to feel the betrayal. If this hasn't been real, whether it's been going on for a week, a year, 10 years, if this isn't real, then what in my life is real?
Right.
And that's the part that causes that internal turmoil.
And the self-doubt.
The self-doubt.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It creates a lot. I mean, there's obviously the insecurity in the relationship, but I think for, the partner on the other end, and, especially for women, it creates a lot of self-doubt.
That insecurity that most people in a committed relationship take for granted after time. They expect that. They expect to be able to say, we have this safety, this secure spot.
But on that note, what I think is interesting is that, a lot of partners go into marriages with an assumption about what monogamy means. And, these affairs are not always, sexual. Sometimes kissing is a sexual thing, but I think a lot of people try to find loopholes or excuses
in their definition.
In their definition of monogamy. Well, I didn't have intercourse, so it wasn't really an affair, or it only happened one time, so it wasn't really an affair,
or it purely existed online.
Right. Yes, I think the online thing is where the waters really get murky for people. There are people who who believe viewing online pornography constitutes an affair, and if that hasn't been explicitly discussed, the understanding of what monogamy means can be misconstrued.
I think that's a good point. Not just for couples who are experiencing infidelity for the future, but if you're in a relationship now and you've never really had the talk about what is okay, what is appropriate and what isn't.
Right.
A lot of times we tend to think, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Well, most of the time they've crossed it, burned it. It's gone by the time that they finally decide to talk about what is appropriate in our relationship. For some people, it can be spending any time with someone of the opposite sex that is social. With others, it can be viewing pornography. With others, it's if a penis enters a vagina. Or like Seinfeld would say, the appearance of the nipple.
There you go, the appearance of a nipple. You can always revert back to Seinfeld for the rules of life.
Exactly. So talking about this sort of thing, of course we're being lied about it, but when clients come in, it is devastating.
Yeah.
There is a grieving process, and sometimes it can look very angry and very unhealthy. Unhealthy.
I want to make a point about when an affair is discovered or when your partner discloses that they've had an affair. I think part of that sense of making it about you or wanting to feel in control is trying to get all the information. Yes. You don't need all the information. Too much information paints pictures in your head that can be impossible to get out. So I do think it's important that at a bare minimum you know some of the facts, like, you know, when it began, how long it lasted, you know, how often were they meeting this person, how much money were they spending on this person, those sorts of things. Who knows about it? Yeah, who knows about it? Is it someone they work with? You know, those kinds of things I think are, you know, understandable and important to know.
But also, if there was any sort of sexual component, oral sex, anal sex, vaginal intercourse, I do tell my clients they need to consider getting an STI or STD check ASAP. Not because I think it's super probable that it's going to happen, especially if there hasn't been a lot of exposure, but because I have a lot of couples who come in and they work through a lot of the emotional stuff. They get to a better place. They get to a safer place. And bam, 6 months, a year down the road, they're hit with...
it's like an HPV. I feel like that's
something that just knocks them out.
And you know, at the end of the day, I mean, that's one of... I can't condone an affair because at the end of the day, I think you are taking away your partner's right to make a fully informed decision about their body and their sexual health. Because if you're having sex with someone else and you're having sex with your primary partner, you're potentially exposing them to STDs. And, you know, I think all of us have a basic human right to make an informed decision about our body.
And to feel physically safe.
Yes.
That is a need that I think when it's not present, whether it's because of abuse or some sort of health issue, it's not something that can really influence and impact a healthy growth and healthy development of a relationship. There's lots of different factors when it comes to how people create unhealthy patterns of behavior following a relationship. What are some of the healthier things that you tend to tell your clients to
I think setting boundaries around the time that you're discussing it, because what I find often, especially in that initial aftermath, is that people want to talk about it all the time. They'll have one conversation and then they'll think of something that they forgot to ask and they'll come back to it. That tends to intensify the emotions around it. I also think it intensifies the trauma because you're like reliving it every single day. So I encourage couples to set boundaries and limits. You know, in the first couple weeks or months after an affair is discovered, sometimes you only talk about it with your therapist. Because anything that's happening outside of the office can become way too emotionally intense and often very circular. You don't really make any progress.
And even the person who actually did this, so the perpetrator who went outside the relationship, they may feel like it's their chance to unburden themselves. So they want to share all of this information because they're having trouble living this double life, and now the person knows and they think this is a gift to them for me to give them all this information and to show them that I am honest.
Right.
But I don't find that that's the best way to handle these things.
Right, and I try to avoid language like perpetrator or victim or, you know, because I think that, you know, sometimes, I know we said earlier it's not always the other partner's, you know, responsibility, but sometimes...
But like we've talked about it before, there is a decision that's made.
Yes.
So the person who made this decision, let's say that. I like your point. I think it's a fair point. But the person who made the decision to cross that boundary, they find that this is a time I need to give them everything that they're asking for.
Right. They think that's what's going to create trust. And it doesn't. It honestly creates more insecurity.
Absolutely.
And the person on the receiving end at some point has to almost make a decision to rebuild trust. Sometimes it really is a decision to be made. Otherwise, people will just loop in and out of these cycles.
I can't imagine not recommending therapy during this sort of situation.
Yeah.
I think it's super, super helpful to find a professional to walk you through what each of your processes are. Because you're going to have different processes as well as a relational one.
Right.
And, you know, oftentimes I'll have clients that say, well, I'm not sure if I should be seeing the same therapist, if I should be seeing you at the same time as my partner. I absolutely think it's more efficient and it's better for everyone if you do see the same therapist.
Do couples therapy
and
from
do
the
couples
beginning.
therapy,
Yeah.
even if you're not sure you want to remain a couple.
Right. Because you want to at least establish, this is ultimately a problem in the relationship.
And
Whether it
for
was
the
because of the
relationship,
relationship or not, now it's a relationship issue. So I think doing therapy together with your partner will immediately start to, either rebuild or help clarify whether, or not you need to end the relationship. So,
well,
anyway.
thanks again. I really want to make sure that
Topics.
we get your comments. Hashtag hot seat. Tell us what you think about what we're saying, what you've experienced, maybe a friend and what they've experienced. It's all helpful for everyone. So thanks again, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.